I think it was only about 3 weeks or so after the assistance that the government came in, and I think put forward the first $85 billion. This story comes out, it's broken, and it's about high-performing AIG employees who are out in Monarch Beach, California, which is a nice place. I could tell you that that resort is a nice place. And the report is that they racked up $440,000 in bills. To the public, given this new world in which we live, and the public goes, what are they doing? How do you respond to that as a representative of the company?
Yeah, what we did, the way it came to light was there was a hearing held, I think Representative Waxman held a House hearing and had a couple of our former CEOs, but there's nobody there who could explain the issue. And one congressman said, you know, I've heard about that there's this conference in California, and how can you explain that? Actually, the attendees weren't even employees, they were agents. And there were employees there to host the meeting, but they were high-performing agents who maybe bring in $250 million in premium a year, and we're spending, you know, a few $1,000s on a award. So anyway, the problem is you can't really, it's very difficult to explain that because it's such an appealing emotional storyline. What we did was, I was in my office in New York watching the hearing on TV, and when this came out, I remember thinking to myself, oh my goodness, you know, because I knew exactly how it would play. So we did a letter right away to Secretary Treasury Paulson, explaining it all, and we released it, you know, to explain the whole thing. It was still overwhelmed, totally overwhelmed by the storyline of, you know, fat cat executives living it up in California. It was, so, you know, that's when it was really difficult. So those sorts of stories, then we were in the sites, okay? Kind of the way Toyota's in the sites right now, right? Once you're in the sites, the media are all over you, government, regulatory, politicians are all over you looking for, you know, some issue that, you know, that they can relate to or play up as a storyline, and that's when it really broke loose in terms of, you know, all these stories about, you know, AIG's alleged, you know, profligacy. It was just, then it became very difficult. It got so difficult that at one point we did what you should never do, and, you know, almost never in crisis communications, was we just hunkered down, because it got to the point where even if we tried to say something, it just made it worse. People just got angrier. I mean, you could see the anger welling up in people, even in the media, when you try to explain it. So we did have a period where we just kind of hunkered down and let things settle, and it actually did help. But it's not textbook crisis communications to do that. You should, you know, obviously you should be open, try to get all the bad news out, try to deal with it, you know, in a forthright manner. But this was a frenzy.
I don't want you to, I don't want to put you in a position of criticizing anyone in the company, but did the executives, besides yourself, did the executives, I think this is a tendency sometimes when you have a crisis like this, that the people in charge, in some ways, resent the negative coverage. They resent the negative stories. They say, look, our company, AIG, most of the units in our company are doing very well. They're performing very well. This is unfair. How do you overcome, I think, that natural tendency to want to get down in the bunker and say, well, the heck with all you people?
Yeah. Well, this gets into, there are a couple issues it gets into. One is the internal complications that you run into when you're in a crisis, because the dynamics internally change completely. But let's talk a second about the people in charge, because, what really complicated things was the fact that in the span of about 18 months, I worked for 4 different CEOs. So in June of 08, the CEO who hired me was left, and when the government assistance was provided to us in September, part of the deal was that the then CEO had to leave. Then another CEO came in, Ed Liddy, who's a wonderful guy, did a terrific job, and then you may have seen, he was treated pretty poorly on Capitol Hill in a hearing there, and he, you know, he wasn't there for the long term anyway. He said he decided to leave, and then Bob Ben-Moshe, who's there now, was appointed. So in the span of about 18 months, we had 4 CEOs. So the very issue of management continuity. In the meantime, the whole board changed over, and management was reconstructed. So having any kind of consistency of strategy and message becomes difficult. Although I think everybody did a really remarkable job. I think I should say AIG as a whole this has not been treated fairly, has done a really remarkable job. The people running those insurance companies ran them under the worst conditions you can imagine, you know, really taking literal abuse from people, but kept those companies going, kept them very healthy. They're healthy today, and they did a remarkable job under difficult circumstances. But you know, but it was so difficult for them, and getting back to another one of your points, is that you know, there was this dissonance. Everything's fine in my business. It's profitable. We're doing fine. But they're telling me I can't hold meetings, and I can't. We literally stopped all meetings around the world, stopped all meetings, which was, when you think about it, crazy, because you stop doing business, which is how we're going to pay the government back. But that's how difficult it became. So for them, it was extremely difficult. I'm running a good business. I'm doing a good job. I'm getting criticized for it. I'm losing, you know, to the competition. And I'm, you know, being really, you know, called not nice things. I mean, there was also when the bonus, which is the other controversy, when the bonus controversy erupted, it got so bad that I've never done this before. I issued a memo urging employees not to go out in public with anything that said AIG on it. You know, we had one employee, you know, physically, you know, punched out on a subway platform, and you know, you read about the bus tours to people's houses and things. That was the low point.
Let's spend some time talking about the bonuses, because probably nothing engendered more controversy than the news that some AIG individuals were getting bonuses. And I think that the number that was tossed around, Nick, was I think 165 million was the number that I've seen. I don't know if that's based on is that an accurate number?
It's one of them.
Yeah.
But again, that issue, and again, you see how long it's taken to explain, you know, these issues. The one that got all the controversy were actually retention payments for the people who ran that financial products group. Now, those retention payments were put in place way before the crisis started, way before AIG got government assistance. And it was intended to hold that group together to continue to do their business and unwind the risk there. You know, for I think it was over a 2-year, I'm not sure, the dates fall together, but it was a period of time. So keep in mind, as the crisis started, this group had, I think, over $2 trillion of notional value of risk. And these are the people who knew these contracts. And yes, there are large figures, I mean, but, you know, which is another problem. But it was very much commensurate with what people are paid in that line of work. But to the average person, it's a tremendous amount of money. So that, you know, was very difficult to deal with. So what happened was, and this led to the very contentious hearing that Ed Liddy attended, there was a payment coming up, first payment on, wasn't the first payment, but a payment related to those retention payments. And everyone looked at the contracts and agreed they're contracts. If you don't pay them, you run the risk of maybe paying double on the contracts, and try explaining that one. And then you also had the risk that you might lose these people who are going to be key to unwinding the remaining risk. You know, I think everybody came to that conclusion. The payments were made. It became a huge controversy because we were portrayed as giving big bonuses to the people who caused the trouble, which just was not true. They were large payments, no doubt about it, but they were the people who were solving the problem, who were unwinding the risk. And again, there's another case where they have continued to substantially unwind risk, and that's moving along pretty successfully. But it was such a compelling. It was very difficult to overcome that. I think the only way you can do it is you just give your best shot to explain what it was, and what it was were legally, you know, legally approved payments that were, you know, for doing a specific job which they're doing. But taps into the whole Wall Street controversy about pay levels on Wall Street and are they appropriate. It is a lot of money, and that's a very legitimate discussion. But I don't think it's you know, it's not the same discussion. The discussion we're having was, you know, making contractual payments to people who are doing the job they were supposed to do.